Welcome to day 31 of Daily Wisdom, a 31-day journey through the biblical book of Proverbs. My name is Tammy Joseph, and I will be your guide for today's teaching. Starting off 2022 with our Daily Wisdom series has been such an amazing journey. If you missed any of the days, go back and watch them and continue to fill your life with daily wisdom. The Daily Wisdom Challenge had 3 different levels. The first level was to read a chapter of Proverbs every day. The second level was to take one verse out of that chapter and really meditate on that verse for the day. The third level was to not do the challenge alone, to do it with somebody, maybe your life group or your family. We would love to hear how God has worked in and through you during the Daily Wisdom series. I want to encourage you to drop a comment and share your personal story, maybe one highlight that you've experienced through the Daily Wisdom Challenge. Now, the word proverb typically refers to a short and clever saying that offers wisdom. Now, we've been talking about the biblical proverbs, but I can remember being a little kid hearing different proverbs. Some of these may sound familiar to you. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's better to be safe than sorry. Better late than never. Actions speak louder than words. Don't judge a book by its cover. Now, those proverbs just rolled off my tongue, and I'm sure as you're listening, they're very familiar to you, and you could even recite them. Now, I want you to think about something for just a moment. Could you imagine what this world would look like if biblical proverbs was what came to our mind and just rolled off of our tongue like some of these proverbs? Wouldn't that be amazing? As we've been studying the book of Proverbs, I would take some time in my quiet time and I would just pray first. And I would ask God to humble myself before Him and that I would embrace God's definition of right versus wrong, even when I may not want to. In the first week of Daily Wisdom, I was worshiping before I was reading my Proverbs for the day, and there was a song that really spoke to me, and it became my anthem. I would listen to that song every day before I dove into Proverbs, and I want to share just a few of those words with you. The song started and said, "My heart is yours completely. My heart is yours totally. You love with no reservation. You're not looking for perfection, and there's no need in me pretending. I'll give you my everything. I'll give you everything. You deserve my full attention and nothing less than my devotion. Speak to me and I will listen. You can have my heart. Be the Lord of my emotions. Set me free from selfish motives and search me till there's nothing hidden. I'll give you everything. You can have my heart." Now, those are just a few of the words, but it really was just great to prepare my heart in worship before I dove in to the daily wisdom that we have been learning about in Proverbs. I love what Bible teacher Paul Tripp says. He said, "The book of Proverbs is an invitation by a God of grace to abandon the old foolish ways of sin and a welcome to fresh starts and new beginnings." We see this throughout the Bible, but each one of us is given a fresh start each and every day. This is a beautiful picture of the gospel and the hope that we have in Jesus. The God of wisdom is also the God of grace. And I'll tell you that I really had to remind myself of that as we've been diving through the wisdom found in Proverbs. I don't think that most people typically run to Proverbs to learn about grace. I think most people run to Proverbs to learn about wisdom, just like we've been doing this month. But I do believe that Proverbs is a beautiful picture of the grace of God. We see the love and kindness and tender-hearted love that our Heavenly Father offers. And because of that, He lavishly gives us wisdom. He pulls us close to Him just like a child would pull his children close. And God tells us what is best for our lives. Now, the reason I mention grace is because that's something that God has been working on me a lot lately. And when I was asked to do Proverbs 31, I will say that I had to put this practice into place and give myself grace. I can be so hard on myself. And Proverbs 31 is most, I would say, well known for the teaching on the virtuous woman. I was a little intimidated by that because the enemy was trying to get into my head and my heart. But I know that God's grace covers us. And that's why I mention grace, because the grace is God's free and undeserved favor towards humanity. As we seek wisdom, we must also be kind to ourselves and accept the grace of God. God spoke very clear to me as the enemy was trying to get in, and he just was so kind in sharing that we may not just be like the virtuous woman, but we all can learn from her humility and her integrity and the wisdom that she shares. Now, I don't know what God wants to speak to you today, but I believe that when we open his word and we lean in with a posture of humility, I truly believe that he has something he wants to speak to each and every one of us. In the last chapter of Proverbs, chapter 31, we hear from King Lemuel. More specifically, we hear from King Lemuel's mother. Now, you may be thinking, who is King Lemuel? Little is known about Lemuel except that he was a king who received wise teaching from his mother. Lemuel means devoted to God or dedicated to God. Now, Proverbs 31 starts with Lemuel's mother warning her son. In verse 2 and 3, Lemuel's mother is warning her son on the dangers of sexual immorality. It continues in verse 4 through 7 by warning a son of the dangers of alcohol. Now I'm going to read from verse 8 and 9. It says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and the helpless and see that they get justice." This here is Lemuel's mother teaching what it means to be a noble king. Now, kings often use their power selfishly, but Lemuel's mother taught him that a king should not be ruled by his passions, but should speak up for those who have no voice. Now, as we get into verse 10, I would say this is probably the most well-known part of Proverbs. And that's where it talks about the virtuous woman. Some versions of the Bible say a wife of noble character or a woman who fears the Lord. Proverbs has a lot to say about women. How fitting that the book ends with a picture of a woman of strong character, a great wisdom, many skills, and great compassion. Now, as we begin to talk about the virtuous woman, I don't want those of you that are watching who may not be a woman checking out. I just want to encourage you that this is speaking to all of us. All women should want to be like her. Men should want to marry her, and all seekers of wisdom should want to embody her wisdom in their own lives. I believe that we can all learn something from the teaching of the virtuous woman. I'm going to start and I'm going to read verse 10 all the way through 31, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper. "Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. She is like a merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plan the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone has warm clothes. She makes her own bedspreads. She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known in the city gates, where he sits with the other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. As I read these verses, I almost feel like it's a mic drop moment. Like, what more is to be said? This is an amazing woman. She was an excellent wife and mother. She is also a producer, a distributor, a manager, a realtor, a farmer, a seamstress, an upholsterer, and a merchant. The key here is her strength and dignity. They do not come from her amazing achievements. However, they are a result of her reverence for God. The phrase "a virtuous woman" speaks of excellence, moral worth, ability. It's not just talking in a marital sense. She is a woman that is full of wisdom in action. In our society today, there can be such a focus on physical appearance. But when you think about these verses that we just looked at, appearance is never mentioned. Her attractiveness comes entirely from her character. The woman described in these chapters has outstanding abilities. Now think about those verses for just a moment. What verses from the virtuous woman can you apply to your life to live differently today? I want to share with you the top 5 things that I think we all can learn from Proverbs 31. The first is faithfulness. In verse 25, it says, she is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. She was a faithful woman. The second thing is worth. In verse 10, it says, who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. The third thing is strength. This woman is clothed in strength, not weakness. Mark 14:38 reminds us that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So if you are clothed in strength, our spirit is strong and seeking after God's will. The fourth thing is wisdom. In verse 26, it says, when she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. The fifth thing is inward beauty. Verse 30 said, charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. The book of Proverbs begins with the command to fear the Lord and ends with a beautiful picture of a woman who fulfilled this command. Her qualities are mentioned, and we read those in the verses: hard work, fear of God, respect for her spouse, encouragement and care for others, concern for the poor, wisdom in handling money. These qualities combined with her fear of the Lord lead to enjoyment, success, honor, and worth. We all can learn so much from the story of the virtuous woman. Proverbs has been practical teachings for us, and it shows us how to be wise. There's been so many topics that we've been talking about that we can apply to our life so that we make good decisions and live according to God's will. I just want to thank you for joining us for Daily Wisdom. And don't let this be an end to your daily wisdom, but just the beginning to living a godly life.